All right. Noun? All right. Oh, this will be good. And another noun.
Coal.
Coal.
President.
Another occupation that we haven't used. What? All right. Sorry, I can't spell it. All right, now another country.
England.
Russia? All right, please, now quick, a means of transportation.
Train. Spot. Bicycle.
Subway.
Bicycle, I heard. All right, a verb.
Ride.
Ride. And an adjective? Lousy? All right. Oh, we're coming down to the wire here. Who has another adjective that they haven't used?
Consumptive.
Consumptive. Good. A song title.
Raindrops falling on my head.
What?
Temptation.
Yellow submarine, I heard. All right. Now, just one more verb.
Elongate.
Elongate. Oh, one adjective.
Red.
Huh? Red? Oh, pretty. I'm sorry. Another adjective.
Slimy.
Slimy. Now we're getting somewhere. And another adjective. Soft. And one more verb. Blind. And one more noun. What? Watermelon. Now, I think I just left one out here. Okay. Optometrist was the occupation. All right, I heard. Now, what you have done here is there's, of course, a problem in politics, and that is getting speeches written. And the problem with the politician is having people, the mind of the people, in on the speeches that have written. You have just helped me write a campaign speech for Mayor Lindsay. You, the people, have spoken. You have filled in the blanks that we were having some trouble, or pretending, suppose we were speechwriters, had trouble filling in. And now we will hear Mayor John Lindsay's speech. Are you ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, friends, and members. As I gaze out over this sea of sexy faces, I'm reminded of a funny story. It seems a man came home unexpectedly one night and found his wife wearing a dog on her arm. "What's going on, Sandra?" he exclaimed. "Nothing, dear," she replied. "I'm just trying to prove that you can dance with a garbage man, but you can't always make a Frank Sinatra prestidigitate." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what I'm trying to prove in my ridiculous way. Because I think this country can be great again. And what made this country great? First, the small president with his mayor in his hand. And his eye fixed on the coal in the distance. Then the honest optometrist who came to this country from Russia, crammed together on cramped, leaky bicycles, so crowded a man could hardly ride without disturbing his neighbor. And finally, the women, scores of them, both lousy and consumptive, marching side by side with the men, exemplifying the words of the stirring song, Yellow Submarine. That's why I implore you this election day to go to the polls and do what good Americans will be doing. Elongate. And if I am elected, I promise to live by the motto of my party, which is a true leader of the people must be pretty, slimy, but not too soft. And while he may be blind in public, he must never do it with his watermelon. Thank you. Thank you. Everyone should have a tape recorder, and here's a word from the people who have the tape recorders for everyone. Sony Super Scope. We'll be back.
Is there vanilla ice cream? I want some, Mommy. You ain't got some. I like green flowers. They're good. Can I have another birthday tomorrow?
Capture the moment.
The Sony portable cassette recorder has a built-in condenser microphone and works on batteries or plug-in. The Sony cassette recorder, one of 42 great Sony tape recorders at your Sony Super Scope dealer.
I'm John Baker. I'm a professional cat breeder. I'm getting ready to show Fury, international champion. I've used Litter Green cat box filler for years. It was sold only to professionals, but now you can buy it in your local supermarket. Litter Green is a patented cat box filler with natural chlorophyll to keep your cat's litter box smelling fresh. See these green pellets? Each one absorbs like a sponge so the chlorophyll can go to work. Litter Green, the professional cat litter.
Your lips. They help you enjoy a lot of the good things in life, like getting married.
Do you have the ring, Joe?
Your boss's jokes. And other good things. So do something good for them with Blistick. It's highly medicated to keep your lips from getting chapped or dry. And helps heal soreness, too. Blistick, so your lips can enjoy themselves while they help you enjoy everything else. From Blistex, the lip care people.
And so I say to friends of mine, if you don't do it, it won't get done.
I think that's one of the most important ideas we can live by. It's the idea behind a united way, behind people in need, the sick, the poor, the aged, the afflicted of every kind. It means that if we really care about our neighbors and our community, each of us has to be personally responsible. So give your fair share, because if you don't do it, it won't get done.
Oh, we're back, and I would like to welcome station WWOM, New Orleans, Louisiana, channel 26, who's joining us starting tonight. Hello, New Orleans, or New Orleans. My only guest tonight claims to have the second toughest job in the country. I don't know, there are those shrewd analysts of public behavior who feel that he might even be after the first, but that's a silly thing to speculate on. Certainly it is a tough job. He has constant attention, he has a great deal of power, he has nice appearance, and now he has a chance to show how tall he is. Will you welcome, please, the mayor of the city of New York, the Honorable John B. Lindsay. I'm sorry I took so much time with that political speech of yours, but...
I can use it. Can I have it?
You can have it, yes. Didn't have any trouble getting here and anything?
No problem.
Nice.
No problem. Strolled across town.
Yeah, nice. Let me, did you really? No.
No.
Was there, let me ask this right now, because I must get this out of the way. Do you have any kind of announcement to make here tonight? The word just leaped into my head.
Just for openers.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I do. I'm not going to run for any higher office at all. And right after this show, I'm just going to go straight home to my wife, Mary Bird. We're going to have we're going to have a private dinner together, a simple little dinner of matzo balls and apple pie and antipasto and fried chicken and corned beef and cabbage.
You left out the
Anything
errands.
else you want to know?
That's nice to know that. Very well handled, I must say. If you do feel the urge to make an announcement anytime during the evening, you know, just put up your hand. We'll know what you mean.
Well, we got 90 minutes to do it.
We do have 90.
We got 90 minutes to do it, and if I feel any urges, I'll be sure to tell you about it.
Okay.
And everybody else. We'll do it
If you feel one
right
kind-
away. That's a long time, 90 minutes. I can't even stay in one party 90 minutes.
Well, then there is a chance you'll have an announcement. How many parties are there left to go to? Quite a few. But anyway, I must say one thing. I feel a little guilty about something. There was an article in Variety about myself and two other people who have late-night talk shows doing jokes in which the city of New York was the butt of the jokes. And I wondered how you feel about that. Do you hold that against us?
I saw the article, because I read Variety once in a while, and It was an article that was prompted by the business community of New York, who feel that they try very hard indeed, and they're always trying to attract conventions in New York and tourists and visitors, and then I suppose they get uptight when they think that late night shows are always teasing the city or knocking it. I tell you, I think this city is so powerful and so strong and has so much going for it that it can take any amount of teasing that anybody wants to offer. More importantly, part of the greatness of New York is the humor that comes out of it, even at New York City's expense. I would, of course, naturally hope to see a little balance occasionally.
Oh, yes. Occasionally we do a joke about someone who survives a trip through Central Park. Just to give equal.
I told you I strolled to the studio tonight across town.
You did. Yeah. And we have a polygraph lie detector backstage. We always keep that when people are in politics or on the show. That would be an interesting thing, wouldn't it, to get everybody in a campaign, and I just thought of this, and hook them up to the polygraph lie detector test, let the public ask them any 3 questions that they want to. Wouldn't that be weird?
Impossible. Can't be done.
Couldn't work.
No, it wouldn't work. You'd explode the electronic machinery all over the place.
Probably would.
Particularly politicians. There's no way it could be done.
I can't imagine how you do it. How anyone in a prominent political job can stand the pressure and the constant problems getting your day organized. Could you just tell us what you did today? Can you remember back to when you got up this morning?
Boy. Today, let's see, it was a cabinet meeting started at 8 o'clock, and that was preceded by a cabinet staff meeting before the cabinet meeting. And
when does the alarm go off for you?
Mary for a little bit. The day really starts about 1 o'clock in the morning when I make the late night calls screaming at people, commissioners, administrators, trying to get something cranked up for the next day. And I usually look at the morning papers midnight or so. And then make a few phone calls as a general rule.
So I figure you get about 6 hours sleep if you're on an average.
About an average of that. And a lot of staff meetings today. Straight through. It was all administrative stuff from beginning to end. Yesterday was kind of the same thing. Breakfast with Mary and my son Johnny at about 7:15. 7 o'clock, I guess, and then I went to another breakfast at 8 o'clock in a Midtown hotel. Yeah, to discuss the subject of maintaining the 30-cent transit fare and bus fare in New York. And when that was over, we think it's important to do that.
Yes, it's amazing there's someone in the audience who still has 30 cents. I mean, the way things are going. And
let's see, then I went from there to Queens and met with the new borough president of Queens, Donald Maness, and a lot of school groups, and the subject was drug addiction and what the schools are doing about drug problems. And I came back to City Hall riding with a newsman who wanted an interview on the subject of the 18-year-old vote and how you go about getting people registered. And then I met with a businessman on expansion of his particular business in New York City. And so it went. The bus, we had a wildcat strike of the school kids' buses yesterday, and it lasted only one day, and we had a meeting on that subject. And then last night, I went back out to Queens, where we opened the new night court in Queens. We now have 3 boroughs, Bronx, Manhattan, and Queens, and have a court that goes at nighttime. That's to speed up the criminal justice system and save time for the police and ease the problem for defendants and for victims and all that. And so it went. And then back to New York City, the Mayor's Cultural Council had a show last night of kids that were performing. Geraldine Fitzgerald put that together. And then let's see, after that was over, I had to go to a private meeting. And then about 10:30 at night, Mary and I went to Sardi's and had dinner, and that was interrupted by the Deputy Mayor, Dick Aurelio, on the subject of the 30-cent fare again.
Oh.
And also a last report on the school bus wildcat that had been settled or ended by then.
By now it's about 11:30 at night.
By now you're talking, then the theater crowd all came wandering in, and I talked to Vincent Sardi for a period of time about the impact of the 7:30 or 8 o'clock curtain on the restaurant business in New York. And I got home in time to read the morning papers and make a lot of phone calls. And then this morning it started again at about 6:45. So it
That's
goes.
incredible. Are you ever
Very
alone? I mean,
peaceful life.
absolutely alone, aside from the obvious. Are you ever, I mean, kind of, no, I mean, when an average man can be alone. What if you just want to get away from people in the middle of a day like that?
Pretty hard.
No way.
No, you
Yeah.
can't get away as long as I'm in New York City, except for those. There's rare occasions when Mary and one or more of the children and I are alone and have dinner or something at Gracie Mansion, which doesn't happen too often. But those we can get away then.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, no, there's no way.
Oh, it's an exhausting day. Well, we will be back. First, but here's something that make the day less exhausting. Dishes as beautiful as china. Durable enough for everyday use. Made by Corning. Watch. We'll be right back.
This is a plate. It's not plastic, china, or earthenware. It's a new material from Corning. We call it Corel Livingware. Looks like china, yet safe in the oven and dishwasher. Corning promises to replace any piece that could break, chip, craze, or stain during 2 years of everyday use. Available in beautiful patterns. 20-piece service for 4, only $19.95. New Corel Livingware by Corning.
Long ago, people drove cars to get from here to there. But as there got further from here, it became a bore. Car stereo fixed that, but it gave all the hubcap thieves a new profession. Well, Craig fixed that with a floor-mount car stereo that you lock in with a key and unlock to use in its home unit. And listen happily ever after.
Craig, it's fun to be with. For your nearest Craig dealer, phone toll-free.
Mayor Lindsay, I don't know how many people know, or it's your honor, isn't it? They drove.
It's usually the first name that comes in a person's mind.
It takes some adjusting. I suppose.
That takes in a lot of territory.
Yeah. I don't know how many people know about how many personal things they know about you in spite of your enormous publicity or celebrity, whatever you want to call it. You went to a school called St. Paul's, I believe.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
It was a.
Where is
it
that?
was a boys' school in Concord, New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
Private school, religiously oriented, church school they called it.
Yeah.
Consisting of about 400 boys in it.
In
I
New
was there
Hampshire.
for 5 years.
Is that the same New Hampshire where they have the presidential primary?
By coincidence, it
Yeah.
happens to be. At age 13, I was plotting and planning, obviously, clearly.
I see a pattern forming here. Was that my image of that school, from what I read a little bit about you today, and I have in the past, is a kind of strict place where you wore a starched collar, and am I right about that?
Yeah, it was in those days. It's changed a lot now. They've got a new way of life, thank heavens. But it was a good school. I liked it, and I liked most of it. My first 2 years, I didn't think it was terribly gratifying. Yeah. And the last 3 where I found were productive.
Mm-hmm.
It was modeled after an English school. Yeah. It was you had to wear a stiff collar for supper at night. So that meant that you had one stiff collar with a shirt that went with it in the closet, which you wore all year. In other words, you get back there and you put that collar on it with a stiff collar, and then you'd met the rule if you'd done it.
Were you
cold showers at 6 o'clock in the morning? You took a shower at 20 below zero, and the tradition was that you had to wind up with a cold shower.
It had to be cold?
It didn't have to be, but it was the unspoken rule, and unless it was cold, why, there was something wrong.
Was that supposed to be building your character, to take a frigid shower?
That was kind of discipline. Yeah. And then you were usually late, so we jogged through the snow in the wintertime to breakfast. Yeah. Considerable mileage. And but it was a good school.
How would you cast yourself as a student? Were you an insufferable goody-goody, or were you
no.
A sort of troublemaking student?
About my third year, I was scared the first year, and worked terribly hard and got very good grades because I was so scared. And the second year, I got grumbly and ill and kind of unhappy. The third year, I was a baddie. And
what were
then the fourth year,
some of the wretched things you did?
I started to do better and liked it and started to participate. Is that the word?
I think so. I don't know if they were using it then.
Then my last year, which was known as the sixth form, It was a really very interesting
They really
year.
were Englishmen.
And oh, yes. And it was a very gratifying year. I was elected president of my form, the sixth form year, in an upset victory. I wasn't a candidate. I wasn't a candidate and wasn't running and anything else. And
Did you deny being a candidate?
I stumped you a little there.
Yeah, you stumped me there. This quote could be taken out of context, and people would wonder what you were talking about. Were you sort of shipped off to school in a sense? I mean, did you have that sense of being sent away to go to school?
No. My father had been. My father had never been exposed to this particular world of boys' schools. He had grown up in New York and quit high school at the age of 15, and went to work and never stopped working the rest of his life, and. So this was a new thing to him. He had no prior experience, but what he did was he showed us a lot of schools around the country. He wanted us to go to boarding school, and we kind of accepted that. I had three brothers, and we accepted that as a kind of a condition. And but what he did was he said you pick the ones that you think you'd like to go to, and then apply. And if you get in, fine. If you don't, you don't. And that's what happened. So we selected this one. I had an older brother who'd gone there, George.
Yeah.
And he was ahead of us. And I also had a twin brother. Yeah. And he came the year after I did, same class, but he elected to wait a year before he went away to school. It's a big decision for a 13-year-old kid, you know, to leave home and do that.
Did you ever think of running away from home? Did you ever go through that?
Oh, sure, every kid does. Yeah. But never in my life, it was never terribly serious. I mean, I never packed a knapsack and got halfway out the door just to see what would happen.
Yeah. So if you had to rate your childhood as happy, unhappy, reasonably happy?
I would say it was a happy childhood, for the most part. We had three brothers. We were all reasonably compatible, and an older sister who's no longer living, and a mother and father who were there and with us and helped us in every possible way. My father had been quite successful, starting from scratch as a businessman. And generally speaking, we had a happy home.
Good. We'll be right back. We have a message from our local stations.
Ready, gentlemen?
Nice bouquet.
Light and delectably dry.
A very unusual sparkling wine.
No, Max. I think you're wrong.
Me wrong? Never.
Oh, Paul Masson's Emerald Dry. Whatever your taste may tell you, it is not a sparkling wine.
I really like long hair, but sometimes it's tough to control. Like especially after shampooing.
Not anymore. Control is easy now.
I don't want something greasy or plastic.
Haven't you heard about Protein 29 aerosol yet?
Like some of those stiff girl sprays?
It's a man's groom in aerosol form. A light mist so you get just enough control. But it's especially terrific after showers because the control the shampooing takes out, Protein 29 puts back.
Protein 29 puts back the control that shampooing takes out.
Men, do you know what feels so good? Noxema medicated shave. It feels so good. It was almost banned in Boston.
Noxema feels so good. It was almost banned in Boston.
Medicated Noxema makes the word soothing almost illegal. Soothe yourself, baby.
Noxema medicated shave.
Put it on. It's the only way to take it off.
When you fly on an American Airlines luxury liner, you won't believe you're on an airplane. This is first class. You can even reserve a table for 4. And this is coach. Of course, our popular Coach Lounge. Only American Airlines has a beautiful luxury liner. Our passengers get the best of everything.
You get the best of everything.
We only have about 5 minutes in this segment, so there won't really be time to get into the really hard questions, but let's see. Oh, you told me a thing, a kind of sobering fact during the break there. You just we're talking about how many classmates yours were killed in the war. Can you give me that statistic again?
We had 25%, a quarter of my school, my class at St. Paul's School were killed in the war.
One quarter were killed in World War II.
1 quarter were killed.
Yeah.
And in Yale College, your old alma mater, I think there were 37, I believe, in my class that was killed.
Yeah.
Any number that were wounded and otherwise damaged. This is World War II. Yeah.
Yeah. You had 5 battle stars, I know, and which means that you obviously were in some action. What's your mental state in combat? How can you describe it to somebody who hasn't been in it? How do you deal with the thought of this might be it, this moment?
Well, I don't know. I mean, everyone has to speak from their own experience. Most of the time, you're so busy that you're doing so much, and things happen so fast that it's difficult for the mind to get into a mental state that is reflective at all. Yeah. Now, and there are a couple times when you're really scared. I mean, when you come that close, when there's some momentary thing of such enormous fright that you figure this is it, that's it. But again, that happens so quickly that
Where do you feel that fear? Where did you feel it? Is it a thing in the gut, as they say? Or
I
just
think
all
most
over?
people, when they get it that kind, it's in the stomach. It's totally it's hard in the stomach if that should happen.
Yeah.
But I think most of the time I was on a destroyer for 3 years, a couple months under 3 years, and we served in the Mediterranean, in the Atlantic and the Pacific. 2 years in the Pacific and the rest in the Atlantic and Mediterranean. And we were in combat most of the time. Shore invasions, kamikazes, and aircraft work, and all kinds of things. Most of the time, I think if you become a professional man, you're too busy.
Yeah, I've heard Colonel Herbert was here the other night and he said the same thing. You're so busy telling this guy to do this and this one to do that.
Yeah, and you're doing so much. I wound up as gunnery officer, and you're always with earphones and in microphones and with computers and electronics and it becomes automatic with enough training. And after all, the only way that you survive in one of those things is with enough training all the time so that things happen automatically.
You said kamikazes. That was a lot of younger people don't know what those were. Those are those Japanese suicide planes.
Kind of like being mayor of New York.
You know when you start out that something's going to happen. But did you have those attack your ship?
Yes, we had them. We were on what was known as stakeout duty for a period of time in the Pacific when the kamikazes began. And what they did was we'd either be with carriers or they'd separate us a little bit from carriers in order to be decoys.
So you drew fire.
You draw fire.
Did a kamikaze ever hit your?
No. We always escaped.
Were they accurate? Did they do much damage to those things?
They did. They were always going for the carriers, of course.
Yeah.
They were going for the larger ships, but mainly the carriers were their target. And our job was to see if we could screen that out somehow. But I remember the key thing that they taught us was the importance of the old British barrage. You know, we used to be. I remember in the Mediterranean, particularly, we operated with British Navy, and American Navy was always very stuffy about the sophistication of their computer system on fire control. Everything with 5-inch guns on aircraft, for example, was done with perfect tracking and instant computer work, and it was almost automatic. The only manual work at all. You didn't use the rangefinders and all that except under certain circumstances. And the British had the famous British barrage. They just pointed everything up in the air and let go. And a lot of lead up in the air, and then you'd hold your hands up because it all came back down again. But when the kamikaze business started in the Pacific, while the American Navy discovered that the British Navy were ahead of us. They just point everything up in the air and let it go.
Yeah.
In fact, they converted my ship they took a lot of what we thought was sophisticated gunnery off it and just put a lot of heavy machine guns and things on it, just to get more rapid fire. So the British weren't so dumb after all.
Turns out they weren't.
Yeah.
We have a station break. We'll be right back.
The Dick Cavett Show with the Honorable Mayor John B. Lindsay will continue following station identification. Sherry North gets guest stars on The Smith Family, tomorrow night on ABC.
This is the look of nature. Soft, wild, beautiful. You can capture it with Look of Nature foam in hair color. Look of Nature. Pure white conditioning foam that blooms from within like nature's own living colors. 15 lasting colors that lighten, darken, cover gray. Soft, wild, beautiful colors. Look of Nature. Capture it.
Hi, I'm Mr. Sunshine. Watch closely. I'm going to show you how to turn this bag of man's potato chips into a bag of sunshine potato chips. Amazing? I'll do it again. Man's potato chips have become sunshine potato chips. The flavor? The same crispy, crunchy, delicious flavor you knew as man's, now in the bright, bold, new striped sunshine bag. Remember, the freshest ideas keep coming from Sunshine.
Left stranded when your car is serviced? Blank Pontiac rescues you with free chauffeur service and in-town convenience. Blank Pontiac, right off 16th Street on Irving.
Television 7, Washington.
The Dick Cavett Show with Mayor John B. Lindsay will continue after this message.
It's sale-a-thon time at Singer, when prices are cut all through the store. Get one-touch sewing at the biggest saving ever. We've cut $80 off the regular price of this touch and sew zigzag machine by Singer in a handsome pace setter cabinet. And we've cut $30 off this stylish zigzag machine, now only $119.95. Get this Singer zigzag machine for only $69. It's the kindest cut of all. We've cut prices all through the store. On fabrics, notions, vacuums. Use the Singer 1 to 36 credit plan and cut yourself in on big savings now at Singer. It's our biggest sale of the year.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, while I do some business. Tomorrow night, Yul Brynner will be here, and the author of Honor Thy Father, that incredible book about the, which Gates Elise wrote. And that was not censored. I just did that myself. And he got to know Mr. Bonanno very well and wrote an incredible book about him. Author of They Call It a Game and former football star Bernie Parrish, who has some real complaints about football. And on Thursday night, Norman Mailer and former light heavyweight champion Jose Torres will actually appear here in the ring together, and they're going to go either 2 or 3 rounds boxing. Do you know about this?
No.
Depending on.
I got a seat.
Yeah, and Mr. Mailer is quite serious about it, and it will be either 2 or 3 rounds depending on what shape he's in.
He didn't have enough running for mayor?
How many rounds did he go in that? I've forgotten.
He got wiped out in the primaries. Most fortunate man.
Have you ever thought how you would take losing? You haven't had too much experience with losing. Would it crumple you?
Well, you've forgotten I lost a Republican primary in 1969.
I was thinking of
running in the primaries then, and I was mayor then.
Yeah, but you didn't lose.
Way back.
You didn't lose the mayordom.
No, I lost the primaries. I lost the Republican nomination, so I was left with the Liberal Party nomination alone, and then I eventually won on that line, to everyone's surprise, including my own.
Let me ask you this. This is kind of a blunt question, but there ought to be some in this interview. Why did you nominate Spiro Agnew as vice president?
Momentary lapse.
All that's happened since, it must occur to you, that must seem kind of a strange replay in your mind to see yourself up there nominating.
Well,
Mr. Agnew.
I'll tell you what, obviously, we've gone such completely opposite directions that I've regretted very much. It seems to me now impossible to have seconded his nomination. I wasn't the nominator. I was one of a series of people that seconded the nomination.
They remember you, though. It's a strange thing.
Yeah. And, well, listen, all of us politicians carry enormous liabilities. It's the question who has the fewest.
Can you remember what went into the decision?
Yes, the reason for it was that two things. One, there had been already some talk at that convention of me being an insurgent candidate to run for vice president. This was after Nixon had been nominated, and he was in the process of choosing a vice president, as they always do, and then they submit the name to the convention. There was some talk of myself, which I did not want to do under any circumstances, and for a lot of reasons, including that I wanted to be, and sent word to them that I would be absolutely free to speak on Vietnam and other issues that I felt strongly about. And secondly, I just wasn't interested in the post. And thirdly, I didn't think that you should force a vice president on a nominee for president. They're both on the same lever. You know, you don't vote for them separately. When you vote for president, you're stuck with the guy he's got for vice president.
You'd like that changed?
And therefore it seemed to me at the time, although I must say from a political science point of view, it's debatable. It seemed to me at the time that nominee for president ought to have his own guy, his own man. So that was another reason why I wanted no part of it. When he came up with then Governor Agnew, it seemed under the circumstances as a not entirely unreasonable choice. Agnew had had a reasonable record. He'd been supported by minorities in his state in his campaign for re-election some time earlier. And he'd been supporting Governor Rockefeller right up until the end. And he had the cast of a progressive. So he looked okay at that particular moment. And secondly, I had the notion, and I'm not sure whether it's right or wrong, frankly, that if, again, a nominee for president ought to be able to have the fellow of his own choice. They're stuck with each other. There's no way that the voters can split that. And so that's why I went ahead and...
You don't think a president ought to have to serve with somebody he doesn't want with him? And you think that would happen,
that was the view I had of it, and that's one reason why I made it very clear that I would certainly be a person that he probably wouldn't want, because I'd spoken out often and early on a number of subjects, some of which Nixon was not prepared to speak on. And as you remember, during the campaign, he, for the most part, soft-pedaled Vietnam, although he had, in my judgment, it was one reason he beat Humphrey. So that's the history of it. That's the history of it, and of course, in hindsight, it's incredible that so many people could have, at that time, at that convention, there were a lot of moderate Republicans there, like myself, could have supported that selection and whatnot. When you now see the vice president who's making statements that he does on the subject of minorities and seems to has no sensitivity to the problem of poor people, and is so hawkish on every subject and so hardline on every subject that it seems entirely wrong now. But at the time, it looked reasonable.
When there's that dramatic change in somebody that you've known in politics like that, when you're alone in private with him, do you talk about it? Would you be likely to say to him, if you were alone in the cloakroom of some restaurant, "What happened to you, Ted"?
No. It doesn't. It's not a normal thing that takes place.
You maintain
I think that people in public life very often find it very difficult to communicate with each other on an entirely man-to-man basis. It does happen. It can happen. Sometimes it can be very difficult when it does. I suppose that one reason that politicians get that way is that if a politician is a professional, he's going to always work with key members of his team. He'll share with them positions he takes, areas that he's moving in, thoughts that he has. He'll share with them conversations that he's had, always to test himself, if nothing else, and to figure out what you should do next. Well, the sharing process immediately spreads it around, and the next thing you know, there are leaks and talks and gossip, and then there's a column in the newspapers and all the rest of it. And most politicians, I think, are very wary about that. Sense it's a great shame, and it would probably be well if there was much less of that. If there was much more candor, directness at all times, it would have, I think, a much more healthy political scene generally.
Yeah. Suppose something like you're nominating, seconding the nomination, actually, of Vice President Agnew. Would you be willing, let's just say hypothetically, in order to heal wounds in the Democratic Party, to nominate Scoop Jackson for Vice President?
Well, I've made it, since I've become a Democrat, and have made it very clear that I intend to work in the national political scene as much as I can in order to bring about changes in 1972, which I believe are important. I've taken the position, which I think is the right one, that I'm not going to start saying, well, I think X would be better than Y, or Y better than Z for a ticket. I've simply said that I hope to be able to support the Democratic ticket. And that
implies
I
that
hope
you could,
that is the case.
You might not be able to. There might be a nominee that you would not support.
Well, look, I was an independent Republican, and I am an independent Democrat. At least that's the way I think of myself. Mm-hmm. I've never lost my independence. In the 13 years I've been in elected office, including 7 years in Congress, I like to think that I never once, well, once is too broad a statement, that I avoided as much as possible ever putting party above principle. We politicians have a way of saying that once in a while we have to rise above principle. And you make an accommodation for the sake of compromise, is what you do. And you do that, obviously, all of the time. No bill that you vote on as a congressman is exactly the right bill, so you're always compromising a little bit. But I never had any hesitation in bringing about the wrath of the Republican Party on my shoulders because I struck an independent position. We did that. Yeah. We did that when we tried to reform the institution of the Congress the first year I was elected on the Rules Committee fight. And I think there were 12 of us Republicans who were immediately branded the infamous 12 because we'd left party discipline, we'd voted wrong to their light, and what we were trying to do was to air the place and to change around all the rules of the game so that it was more open. Sure. Yeah. And I don't see myself ever changing.
Yeah. So you can conceive of the fact that if the Democratic nominee were someone you considered a real dog, you would not support him.
How do you know? I would hope that's not the case. I think that, you see, what's happened is that the Democratic Party, thank heavens, has taken some real steps to open up its convention. The Republican Party's not done that. And Senator McGovern is one of those who's brought this about. My old colleague in the House of Representatives, Congressman James O'Hara, has played a part in that. There go the fire engines around. They want to make sure that I know they're on the job.
That's probably.
They know I'm here, so they're running around the block.
It's my monologue writers going home, writing a joke about New York.
Maybe they're going out for coffee in Danish. However.
Excuse me, we must take a break here now. We'll be in big trouble. Here's a way to make those stubborn cloth wrinkles disappear. All it takes is a shot of steam iron from Sunbeam Watch.
Can your steam iron do this? Look again. It's Sunbeam's shot of steam iron. All you do is touch this button and watch how Sunbeam's instant extra steam penetrates a pressing cloth and heavy wool. Sets professional type creases in trousers or pleated skirts. Gives you 61 holes for better steam distribution. Look for the shot of steam iron and the spray shot of steam iron, both from Sunbeam.
Look what Max Factor's done. Invented a makeup as delicate as you are, and slow whipped it so it's fluffy and sheer. A makeup so rich in moisturizers, it's not only good for your looks, it's good for your skin. Makes your complexion look fresher, more natural than ever before. They call it ultra-lucent whipped cream makeup. Think about it. Ultra-lucent whipped cream makeup. Only by Max Factor.
Some dishes should be more than spotless, right? Let us tell you how Calgonite makes dishes clean enough for even a baby. You see, our unique automatic dishwasher formula turns tough food stains like oatmeal and chocolate into tiny globules. Sort of like balls which just roll off your dishes right down the drain. So with Calgonite, your dishes are more than spotless. They're clean, too.
Pontiac introduces the first luxury Le Mans. We took the handy size of a Le Mans and gave it the richness of full-size luxury. We gave it a new grille all its own, luxury car trim, fender skirts, its own luxurious interior, its own new quiet ride, and we gave it an easy Pontiac price. Luxury Le Mans. Now you can get all the luxury you want without buying more car than you need.
Mind if I play a while? I have my toys here. Le Mans, it's at your Pontiac dealers now. There you are. There's a reason for this toy. You talk about, I'm always fascinated with the public life and the private life of politicians, and they call each other things, and then they meet privately, and I always wonder how they feel when they meet, and after they've said this scathing thing about the other one in the press or something. You and Governor Rockefeller, for example, do you, just to pick an example out of the air, do you despise each other personally, or is it just a political thing? I just have to know as a citizen.
I think we're both professionals, and when you're in, if you've been in office long enough, you have to become a professional if you weren't when you started. And it has to be obvious that we disagree on a number of things, and those disagreements are very clear ones and obvious ones. We disagree on the approach to government and the involvement of people, and I think it's true also that a mayor of any big city is always going to be at a certain amount of warfare with the governor of the state and the state legislature. I don't know of a mayor of a major city in the country, and I deal with all of them all of the time, who doesn't have those troubles. There's a very good political reason for that, and that is that most governors and state legislatures politically they perceive their base as being in suburban and rural areas. And that's true in most of the western states, but it's also true in the industrial states, the north. And that's true in New York to some extent. The suburban power is immense upstate, and they control the Republican leadership in the legislature, and I think that probably is at the heart of most of the disagreements I've had with the governor and with the leadership.
What do you say if you're stuck back to back with each other at an awkward moment publicly or something? What tends to pass between you? I mean face to face.
Take 10 paces and draw.
I know. I didn't mean back to back. I meant side to side, I guess. Oh, I'm sorry. I've gotten us behind. We must catch up here. Now a word from the SDP Corporation. We'll be right back.
Every day is moving day at North American Van Lines. And to make sure every move goes smoothly, their trucks use STP oil treatment. These trucks have to haul tremendous loads under all conditions, through crosstown traffic, cross-country miles, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Through it all, STP helps keep them running smoother, cooler, quieter, longer, in all kinds of weather. Try STP oil treatment in your family car and run racer sharp.
This is the fabulous new Strato-Lounger Lowback. Looks just like another beautiful chair, right? Wrong, because there's never been a chair like it before. You see, it's much more than a beautiful chair. It's also a full-size recliner for TV or just plain relaxing, with a built-in ottoman for your feet and a hidden headrest to soothe your brow. The incredible new low-back recliner, only, by the way, from Strato-Lounger. That's where you look for it, Strato-Lounger. Mayor Lindsay, right after the Attica thing, you were quite careful not to criticize the governor in what looked like a golden opportunity to do so, apparently by people who rushed to you with microphones. Now that some time has passed, would you be willing to say what you would have done in those circumstances, or what you think the governor should have done?
Well, I think it's best to talk about in terms of what happened in New York City a year earlier, when we had the same problem in New York. And I'll tell you a reason why I prefer to put it in that context. And that is that we have 7 major correctional institutions in New York City, major ones. We have some 14 or 15 all told. If you add up everything, including these big detention centers that are attached to courthouses in the criminal court system. But the major institutions on Rikers Island and Brooklyn, Bronx, and Queens, and Manhattan There are about 7 or 8 regular institutionalized things. And although I've been working at it for many years since I've been mayor to reform them, change them, improve them, and make them humane places that rehabilitate people and which have a guard system and a correctional system which is understanding and relates to inmates, etc., and which has good medical services and all the rest of it. Despite all those efforts, we still have a long distance to go. They're still not in good enough shape. And there's still wrong attitudes on the part of supervisory people and guards that need shaping up. There's insufficient input of programs for rehabilitation, etc. So I don't want to be in the position of saying, well, if I were there, I would have done this. Now, a year earlier, we had the same problem in 2 of our institutions. The Men's House of Detention, which is, as in the past, known as the Tombs, and the Queens Detention Center. Both of them took hostages. There were more than 30 hostages that were taken by inmates at both of those institutions. And we had a nightmare. Now, the inmates instantly and immediately called for the mayor, and I sent word that I would meet with a representative group of inmates in both institutions, providing they would first release the hostages, and that I'd meet with them to discuss all and every one of their problems. We also said there'd obviously be no reprisals of the kind that they're afraid of, which is counterattack by the guards when they were helpless. When an inmate talks about reprisal, he's not talking about immunity from criminal prosecution because of breaches of the criminal law that are made while in the institution, and I never would offer that, and I don't think that's ever expected.
Reprisal, he means getting beaten up.
Yeah, that's what he means, and he's had enough of that. He's seen that does happen in these institutions, and that's one of the things that I'm constantly fearful of and worried about. Secondly, having made agreements to talk and to meet, at that point you have to, having done that, then you have to retake the place. And we did it in the Men's House of Detention, the Tombs, and we did it in the Queen's House. And the Tombs was at midnight, and early in the morning we moved to Queens and did that. Now, to do that, we use only correctional officers who have deep knowledge of the inside of the place and everybody who's in it. In New York City, they're integrated at 45% non-white among the officer group. No firearm is ever permitted inside a correctional institution under any circumstances. It's the most basic rule. And when the guards retook it, there are no firearms on anybody. They went in. They did have nightsticks and helmets. Nightsticks are bad enough. New York City police are highly disciplined and trained as an urban police corps. And they carry sidearms, but for that reason they are not permitted inside any of those institutions in the process of retaking them from the inmates who were holding those guards hostage.
Had they threatened the hostages?
Oh, yes, sure. They'd threatened them. They had them tied to chairs. They had knives at the throats and clubs over their heads. But we retook both of those places and released more than 30 hostages without any injuries.
How did you know there wouldn't be injuries? How did you know they wouldn't?
We didn't. It was you never could be sure. When we had completed the Tombs and I had finished meeting with the inmates, representative group of them, which went on for a couple hours at least, and discussed all their grievances, and back and forth we went. And I took a lot of heat and a lot of angry words. We got finished with that, and the question was what to do about Queens, which was worse. And we figured the only thing to do was to, on the same basis, was me having agreed to meet with inmates, was to move in instantaneously there also. And I remember we made that decision in the Men's House of Detention in Manhattan. And I was surrounded by the Corrections Commissioner and by the Police Commissioner, the chief inspector was there, and first deputy. That was in the hiatus just between Leary and Murphy, and Murphy hadn't quite arrived in New York yet, so the commissioner himself was not there, and the high-ranking correction people. And I remember when I finally had to make the decision, I remember asking one of the senior and one of the best guards of the guard command, who was from Queens. I remember asking him, I said, what do you think will happen? And he says, I think you'll have 11 or 15 guards with their throats cut. But that was one opinion. There are other opinions that differed from that.
What overruled his opinion?
What overruled his opinion was a collection of other opinions and the knowledge that there was, at the time, that there was no alternative in sight in view of the fact that I'd agreed to meet, I'd go in the institution, sit down with the men, and have a thorough airing of grievances with a follow-up procedure on that, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think they also, I'd also made, in my agreements to meet with them, I made solid commitments that there'd be no reprisals, and we'd take responsibility for that. And what they meant by that was retribution by the guards, physical hurt.
Can you see?
I regret to say there was a little of that afterwards. When the guards released, when they recaptured the place, there was a problem, and we still haven't finished doing the necessary disciplinary work and testing and other things that have to be done to ensure that that never happens again under any circumstances.
Why do you suppose the governor didn't do similar later?
I really don't know, because I wasn't there, and I don't know what the conversations were with Mr. Oswald, his own corrections commissioner, and all the rest of it. The answer to your question, why, nobody can say. I don't know. I do think that, I know that my heart sank. I don't have sleepless nights too often, maybe because I'm too tired. But the night before they went in, I think I slept 20 minutes all night, because I knew they were going in. They'd announced that they were going to retake. The radio reported they were mobilizing to retake tomorrow. But I knew that they were going to do it with state police backed up by National Guard. And state police have shotguns and rifles. Well, I have to tell you that, it's hard enough disciplining and training an urban policeman, New York City policeman. But a rural state policeman in any state in the country is a different breed of cat. And it's impossible to send in those essentially state troopers and highway patrolmen, all white. I think out of 3,000 state troopers, they have 8 blacks or something like that. Impossible with shotguns and rifles to go into an institution of that kind without having an awful lot of bloodshed. So,
we'll be right back after this message from our local.
Have you been feeling all torn up inside? Heartbeat slow, temperature down? Then get into the swinging world of the private duty nurses. They have a special treatment no doctor can supply. Private Duty Nurses, the sensational new motion picture that goes behind the scenes with the girls in white.
Starts tomorrow at the Lee Highway, Mount Vernon, and Queens Chapel drive-ins, rated R.
October is a favorite month for most people and a dividend month for folks who save their money at Perpetual Building Association. Perpetual savers have received over $7 million in dividends this month as a quarterly reward. You too can share in these rewards 4 times a year and enjoy the good life with dividends from Perpetual. Start your insured savings program now at Perpetual. For 90 years, a landmark of strength and security.
It's me.
Yes, I know.
Aw, not again.
Susan, what's the trouble?
I've got this feeling I'm one of those over-the-hill steward I.
Listen.
There's a new you coming every day. A new me. me?
From the ground up. You see, your body's changing, building 3 billion new cells a minute. And you know what cells thrive on?
Coffee? Tea?
Milk, Susan.
Ah.
Milk has high-quality proteins, more calcium and vitamin D, more bodybuilding materials in one package than any other single food. With what we know today, it's time you took a fresh look at milk.
Pour it down, drink it up, let the change in you reveal, I tell you.
Susan, right this way.
Oh.
The great
Anthony Quinn stars in The Man in the City tomorrow night on ABC.
We're back, driving home the same point about anti-leak Zerex antifreeze. It stops most common radiator leaks, just like that. Follow directions. Flush a dirty cooling system first. Zerex guarantees you complete satisfaction for a full year or write DuPont for your money back. Anti-leak Zerex, guaranteed not to run out on you.
To destroy strep, staph, and other harmful germs, to really clear the air, use Brethopine disinfectant spray. Use Brethopine disinfectant spray to quickly remove cooking, smoking, damp odors, to prevent mold, mildew, and rot. To disinfect, deodorize, and sanitize all surfaces as you clean. For four-way health protection every time, get regular liquid Brethopine. Remember,
In millions of homes, health is fine with the help of Brethopine.
A message from your Heart Association. Cigarette? No, thanks. I can live without it.
Television 7, Washington.
Mayor Lindsay's volunteered to take some questions from the audience, and not every politician I've had on the show has done that. So if you raise your hand, and someone will try to get to you with a microphone. There's a man right there with the mic.
Yes, I'd like to say something first, just for a second. In suburbia, if they fix the road in front of your house, your taxes go up. In New York City, the department stores and business community, the value of their property is tremendously enhanced because of the subways. Why shouldn't they fully support the subways and thereby have a free fare on the subways?
I see some people nodding.
It's funny. I just got through a meeting today with in the city hall with a group of businessmen who were bitterly complaining about the real estate tax in New York, and they were arguing that it was too high, and they were trying to argue that it was much higher in New York than it is in any other major city, and that they're asked to carry a disproportionate share of the load of urban services and city services. And of course, I was arguing back that I didn't think their figures were right, that real estate taxes are not higher in New York than they are in other cities, and et cetera. So I think that the tax burden that businesses and people in New York City pay is a tough one, and it's a relatively high one. And I'm not sure that you should pick out one segment or another to pay for one particular citywide service. We introduced the city income tax because we believe in tax fairness, and it's a graduated tax. We introduced the first bank tax in New York, and we introduced new taxes on utilities and on business in general. In fact, we've introduced the first corporate business income tax in New York City, replacing another hodgepodge of less progressive taxes. So I think the business community and the real estate community have been asked by me since I've been mayor to do their share, which they were never fully asked before. And I think it's about right. There are other ways by which the subway and bus fare, incidentally, can be held. And we've been recommending those ways to the state, and we'll continue to do so in the next few days.
Let's see what some of the other questions are. Yes, sir.
Well, you'll be pleased to know this isn't a political question, but I just wondered, what does a man like you and a job like yours do for a hobby? What do you do to take your mind off your work?
I do all those clean things and American things that politicians should be doing. What I do is Mary and I and the children enjoy a certain amount of sports. We're all skiers. We love to ski, and we do it as often as we can. We play tennis. I like exercise. And we go out in the water occasionally when we can. Mary and I particularly enjoy going in the summertime to the beach occasionally. We like, last summer we took a holiday and we took 5 days up in the Rocky Mountains on horseback, way up at 13,000 feet, close to heaven, and without any people around, and a lot of horseback riding. I ride occasionally in New York City, incidentally, with the mounted police. Once in a while, I go out, and a couple of my daughters enjoy doing that. They rent a horse over on the west side. We like the theater, and Mary and I spend as much time going to the theater as we can.
How do you get all that done and do any politics?
Well,
Yes,
we don't
sir.
do it often enough.
Yes, sir. On the aisle. Someone on the aisle.
I'd like to know when we're going to stop all this heroin from France, all the refineries there coming into New York by these diplomats, which destroy all the young of this city, which would do good. I'd like to know when we're going to stop France from doing this.
Heroin coming in through diplomats from France.
You're right in saying that heroin enslaves a population because it has kept a portion of our population enslaved, and now it's spread to more affluent communities in our city and out in the suburbs too. There isn't any community, I don't think, anywhere else in the country that is free of the threat of drug abuse. The heroin is processed in the Far East and in the Middle East. It's grown there. It is processed. It has been processed in points in Europe, and France was one of the chief violators of that. And illegal operations taking place in the south of France in the Marseille area. The French government has made moves on that. There has been diplomacy on the subject, and they've taken some steps, and they've moved rather vigorously. However, heroin is still coming in to New York City, regardless of what the French government has done, and they have taken steps. And there's been visits abroad by United States representatives on the subject. Heroin is still coming in processed form, and it comes in larger quantities than ever came in before. And we have to take note of the fact that supplies of heroin from Indochina are increasing. That was not a primary supply area in the old days. And most of it came from Turkey. But now here it comes from Indochina, which means that whole peninsula there. We are having discharged in New York City now about between 3,000 and 4,000 veterans a month. Not all of them have lived here all their lives, but they've chosen to stay here. They're returning home, or else they live in another part of the United States, and they've elected to come to New York City. One reason, parenthetically, they elect to come to New York is that with unemployment as high as it is in the country, New York City still has the lowest unemployment rate of any major city in the United States. So they come here for jobs. But we estimate, and maybe we're wrong, but our best guess is, and that seems to be supported by other data, that 10% those discharged veterans are addicted or have a drug problem. And the last test that we took in the men's house of detention, the Tombs, about 14% at that particular moment were recent veterans. And generally speaking, about 50% of the population there is addicted. So here we have coming out of Vietnam. And you imagine what this conjures up. It shows the brutality of the war. It shows the idiocy of the war and its mindlessness. And it's also a clear demonstration of the deterioration in the Army that war has brought about.
Sorry, we must take a message from our local stations right now. We'll be right back.
No matter what the principle, it's the interest that counts. And here at Chevy Chase Savings and Loan, the interest counts even more. No one pays a higher rate. Earn 6% interest from date of deposit, compounded quarterly. No minimum deposit, no certificates required. And deposits are insured up to $30,000. Visit us soon or call 652-0100. Chevy Chase Savings and Loan, dedicated to your future security.
Gosh, look at all those party goodies. But will I get any? Nope, it's that doggone Handy Wrap. Handy Wrap keeps everything fresh. Darn stuff clings without snarl, handles easier so you can wrap better, tighter. Doesn't cost much either. Goodbye, goodies. You'll stay fresh with Handy Wrap. Hey, I'll hide it. Oh, what's the use? She'll only buy more. Handy Wrap, I hate you.
You know those commercials where the girl says, Protein 21 shampoo helps beat the frizzies? Well, I don't have split ends, but I get a different kind of frizzies, the stick-out kind. So I use this new shampoo, Protein 21 Concentrate. It's terrific. It keeps your hair from sticking out all over. So even after shampooing, you have control. And it cleans great because it's a formula for your kind of hair, oily, dry, or regular.
New Protein 21 Concentrate. It helps you beat the stick-out frizzies.
If it kissed you once, will it kiss you again? Be certain with certain.
The delicious candy mint that stops bad breath. Delicious candy mint, perfect breath mint. Certs is two mints in one. Certs contains a sparkling drop of resin to stop bad breath.
He'll kiss you again. Be certain with certs.
Well, Lindsay, there seem to be some problems that you can believe politicians when they say they have an answer to, but heroin just seems to be really out of hand in this country, and so many people are concerned about it. Does anyone really know what to do about it?
No, you cast about for solutions and you try. We have big programs mounted in New York, the biggest in the world, I think. We have about 20,000 addicted persons who are in some program in New York City right now. About 9,000 on methadone maintenance. That's a substitute drug, and it removes it. Just takes that person off of the craving for heroin, and he stops being a heroin addict, and he stops hopefully he stops criminal activity, mugging people in the streets to get the money to buy the stuff, because you're giving him another drug, which is controlled. And we hope to double that figure by the end of the year. So we'll have twice that number. And then we have these therapeutic communities that are very big, Phoenix houses and other things, which are drug-free programs. We're spending about $80 million, various kinds of money, federal and
you have faith
other.
in the methadone program?
Yes, we believe it.
Yeah.
We believe that it's right, and we're also supporting research in other areas. The federal government is not doing the research that ought to be done on this thing, so we're doing it from New York City to see what other types of drugs can be used in a controlled medical basis in this whole area. And then we're heavily involved in detoxification efforts too. All of the major institutions, the corrections institutions I mentioned to you, now have what is known as detoxification. Any addict who comes in can be immediately detoxified with heroin. and which means that he doesn't go through the withdrawal pains. And a big chunk of the suicide problem in detention centers is from the withdrawal agony. So that's been introduced widely. Law enforcement, your direct police costs are approaching $90 million just on drug problems. That's full-time, 90 million just direct costs. And there again, that's more than the federal government is spending in the whole United States and abroad on the subject of traffic in heroin. So we're doing a lot in New York City, but it's very difficult to say that we're staying even with the problem. I'm not sure that we are. So it remains one of the most tortuous fields that I have to deal with every day of the week.
Speaking of addiction, how did you manage to stop smoking in the midst of the tensions of political life? I used to see you with cigarettes, and I never do anymore, or have you?
Yes, I smoked a lot of cigarettes. I smoked them. I picked up the habit during the war aboard ship.
Yeah.
And I was, I was smoking like everybody else, smoking 2.5 packs a day in the Navy, and then I got out of the Navy and I detoxified myself.
Did you have a method you used that you can pass on?
Some ways, and then I smoked all the way through law school, and it was really, I practiced law for a number of years now, smoking. Now, I think it must have been around 10 years ago that I quit, maybe a little longer.
Old photographs show you often with a cigarette.
Yeah.
Did you have a technique for quitting? How'd you do it?
I read a book called How to Stop Smoking. 10 easy lessons. You read 1 page a day. That helped a little.
I know that
I also
one.
had a doctor that told me to stop smoking.
He did
said
tell
that
you
was
to.
a useful thing to do. Yeah. He was very firm about it. He said, just cut it out. And he frightened me on the subject. He was very tough.
Gee. That book is the one that tells you how it will feel on the first, second, and third days. And
That's
that sort
right,
of thing.
exactly.
Yeah,
It tells you what to do. On the 3rd day, you pick up a pack of cigarettes and play with it.
Do you have a hankering for one now?
The only time that I have the urge to go back to cigarettes is when I smoke a cigar, which I do occasionally. And if I smoke enough cigars, well, then I know that it's going to put me right back on cigarettes, so then I stop smoking the cigars for a few weeks.
I see. Feel that urge for an announcement? No. Okay. Our local stations have a message. Think about it. We'll be right back.
Harold, are you sure about this movie?
Oh, Ramona.
Oh, Rex. Well, Harold, I can't watch this. Let's leave now. Please, Harold.
Before you buy your tickets, buy the Washington Star. Each week, we preview over 25 movies, plays, and other entertainment, so when the lights cut off, you won't have to cut out. Call 484-3000 for home delivery of the Star.
Harold, you like this.
Maybe I'm crazy to be out here, but I know what I like. And if I like standing in ice water at 6 in the morning, that's what I like.
People who do more, people who want more, people who live more. Drink the coffee that gives more. Maxim freeze-dried coffee.
Some people think Maxim comes on strong, but that's the way I like it. And I know what I like.
To destroy strep, staph, and other harmful germs, to really clear the air, use Brethopine disinfectant spray. Use Brethopine disinfectant spray to quickly remove cooking, smoking, damp odors, to prevent mold, mildew, and rot. To disinfect, deodorize, and sanitize all surfaces as you clean. For four-way health protection every time, get regular liquid Brethopine. Remember,
In millions of homes, health is fine with the help of Brethopine.
Take life easy. Slow down, America. You don't need to move so fast. You can make this lifetime last. So share the wine, Italian, Swiss, colony wine.
A lady from Boston sent me a letter. She said there's a certain kind of question that they never ask people, like on the shows like this and even on the news shows. And one of them she wanted to ask was, do you approve of Mr. Nixon's economic policy? And do you agree that it's anti-labor? Pretty much across the board. That was the way she put the question.
It is. It is. It's the economic policy that has been put to Congress by the president is very heavily weighted to business, and it grants very heavy tax relief to business, theoretically as an economic incentive to invest and whatnot. But it doesn't grant anything to the wage earner. There's no tax relief there at all, and it's very much weighted. No,
Mr. Meany the other day was quoted as saying if you ran for president, he would vote for Nixon. What does he have against you?
I don't know. He's entitled to a judgment. He's entitled to an opinion, and I respect it. What else can I say?
I don't know, but here's your chance if you want to.
No, we haven't. I like to think that we have, on the whole, good relationships with the wage earners in New York City. We've tried to do a lot for the 400,000 municipal employees who needed catching up, and we've sought to do that. And I think that it's respected by blue-collar workers who are in the city world because they really are extending their cooperation for the first time, I think, in any government on the whole question of productivity. You know, the use of manpower for maximum advantage. And we've made some gains, and we hope to make some more gains on that. I don't think that would come about if there was not an understanding that we've been able to bring about on the importance of getting better service to people with the same amount of manpower that was there before.
Everybody makes mistakes in a political career, and you can profit by them. Can you give us what you look back on as your worst blunder?
You know, of course, in the business of politics, particularly if you're running for something, nobody ever wins. It's the question of who makes the fewest mistakes is what really happens. I always think of what Yogi Berra said the year the Yankees lost the pennants. He was asked why, and he said, we made too many wrong mistakes. It was a great thing, you know, and when I say, gee, I hope I don't make any wrong mistakes today. Mistakes, yes, but don't make them wrong mistakes.
You don't have any one classic blunder that you look back on?
Well, you mentioned one in my seconding of Mr. Agnew. That was clearly a mistake as I look back on it. And, I think there's been nicky things that happened here and there that are mistakes. I voted wrong a couple of times, but didn't really know it at the time. You know, as hindsight, I can see that it was probably the incorrect vote when I was a member of Congress. Probably that came about because I was rising above principle, as they say, and trying to give my party one on those occasions.
What's the last good movie you saw?
Carnal Knowledge. Great movie.
Is it?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. Here it is.
Great
Here
movie.
it is.
I recommend it to you.
Yeah. You do get out to the movies, then. Do you think it's important what movies politicians like?
I saw another great movie that as a mayor you'd love is MASH. Did you ever see MASH?
Yes, I did see MASH.
Another great movie. It was filmed in Korea, but it's really about City Hall. Arms and legs all over the place, and blood all over the floor, and a bunch of reasonable professionals in the place with a lot of forces beyond their control going on outside.
Made you feel right at home.
That was the story of MASH.
We have a message. We'll be right back.
Hollywood bread, taste is beautiful. Hollywood bread, life is beautiful.
Hollywood Light and Hollywood Dark. Special formula, thinly sliced. 8 great vegetable flours, no shortening. The taste is beautiful.
Hollywood bread, taste is beautiful.
Eleanor Hansberry's recipe booklet free where you buy beautiful Hollywood bread.
Some things can't be improved on. Eggs and carnation evaporated milk. Inside this familiar shape is the best start for the best meals you'll ever cook. Juicier meatloaves, fluffier omelets, richer pies, smoother casseroles, dishes so velvety smooth and rich they could only begin with velvetized carnation evaporated milk. Take a crack at it and hatch some of the best meals you'll ever cook.
Tomorrow night, Yul Brynner, Gay Talese, who wrote Honor Thy Father, and an angry football player. Gee, this time has really flown by. Two gentlemen named Muskie and McGovern handed up a question from the audience. What primaries might you enter? And we don't have any time. Could you give them a quick answer on that? Or do you know the gentlemen?
Yes, I know them, and I'm very fond of them. They're good senators, and they're good men. Let's see. I've been in Arizona and had a wonderful time with Herb Eli, who's the Democratic State Chairman. I've been in California, and I had a great time with Chuck Manette, who's the Democratic State Chairman there, and Bob Crane is the Democratic State Chairman of Massachusetts, and John Burns is the superb Democratic State Chairman of New York.
Don't you know any Republicans?
How's that for openers? How's
That's
that for
pretty
openers?
good. That's
I
pretty
have
good.
no plan to go into a primary at this time, and I don't know whether that would change. I don't know. It might change. The only reason it would change is if I thought that it would be the most effective way that I could bring about the kind of changes I think have to come in 1972.
We'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you for being here. Good night.